Are we good?
We're good.
It's 7 o'clock. I'll call our meeting to order. Kevin, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Babcock?
Here.
Mrs. Sweet?
Here.
Mr. Bear?
Here.
Mr. Whitaker?
Here.
Mr. Avery? Mr. Hannah?
Here.
Council does have a quorum. Please join me in pledging allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. This is the regular session of the Enon Village Council. This is April 26, 2022. Additions to our agenda this evening.
I'll move that we excuse Mr. Avery from the meeting this evening.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Whitaker, second by Mr. Bear. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Babcock?
Yes.
Mrs. Sweet?
Yes.
Mr. Bear?
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Hannah?
Yes.
And that motion is approved. Let's go into our meeting minutes from Tuesday, April 12th, 2022. And if those look satisfactory to council, I would ask for a motion and a second to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Sweet, seconded by Mr. Whitaker. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Babcock?
Yes.
Mrs. Sweet?
Yes.
Mr. Bear?
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Hannah?
Yes.
All right, and I know I've got minutes in here for our special meeting, and that was on Friday, April 15th, 2022.
I'll move that we accept those as presented.
I'll second.
Moved by Mr. Whitaker, seconded by Mrs. Sweet. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Babcock?
Yes.
Mrs. Sweet?
Yes.
Mr. Bear?
Abstain.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Hannah?
Yes.
And those are approved as submitted. Let's go into our, looks like our financial report was taken off there, but in any case, we'll go into finances and we'll start out with the fund status report. General fund has $197,000. Street construction, maintenance and repair, $61,000. If we go down to the ARPA funds, $103,000, and that was after payments to our employees. Police levy, $290,000. Water operating, $183,000. Contingency, $200,000, for a total of $933,552. Revenue status. We go to the general fund. That fund has collected approximately 41% of anticipated revenues, and of course, those are, the majority of that's directly tied to our real estate taxes and our collection. Let me see if we've gotten our rollback yet from the state. No, we have not. So
We haven't.
yeah, we got about 26,000, so about 13,000 we would anticipate. So I know that always lags behind, so hopefully that will come in soon. Street construction, maintenance and repair, we received about 32%. On page 3, our police levy, and again, that's tied to our real estate taxes, about 48%. And let's go to page number 4. Water operating, we received 26%. And again, that doesn't have any collections associated with April yet. So on the reconciliation, first meeting in May, that will bump up significantly. On page 5, the total for this particular report, year-to-date received, is 31%. Let's take a look at our appropriations for the general fund. Turn to page 2. we spent about 34%. Street construction, on page 3, we've spent about 30% of our appropriated funds. If you turn to page 4, on the police levy, we're about 29%. And let's go to page 6 for our water. On the water, about 25%. And overall, for the total on the report, about 26%. So we're in pretty good shape spending-wise. And then Kevin, I know you had one motion for the purchase of the property out of the contingency fund. Since we don't appropriate anything out of that, typically we need to do an appropriation there.
This will be taken out of the, I think you have a copy of it in your packet. Appropriation adjustment, taking $90,177.66 out of the capital outlay water contingency fund for the purchase of the property.
And we would need a motion and a second to approve that appropriation.
So moved. I'll second.
Moved by Mr. Hannah, seconded by Mr. Bear. Any discussion?
Was there, like, I mean, that's obviously a very odd amount. So how was that calculated?
Is that the difference between what's in the ARPA, the remaining in the ARPA?
There was some taken from the ARPA fund, some taken from the park.
It was just split into 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, just split into thirds.
Oh, is that what it was, just thirds?
Yeah.
Okay, well, then that answers the question.
And that was Laura's recommendation. That way no fund got hit hard. So she just split it into 3. Any other questions? Call the roll.
Mr. Babcock?
Yes.
Mrs. Sweet?
Yes.
Mr. Bear?
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mr. Hannah?
Yes.
And that motion is approved. Under communications, I'm going to bump up the drinking water source protection meeting. That's just an announcement that we're having a meeting of the committee this Friday at 2 p.m. And we'll be discussing the latest results from our monitoring of the actual wells, the early warning wells, those little monitoring wells that we have. Last year, it was decided that we would increase the monitoring. Was it 1 or 2 wells, Kevin? And so we're going to look at the results. We've got the hydrogeologist, Mr. Brent Huntsman, who has done extensive work in our aquifer. He'll be here. We'll look at the interpretation of those and make sure everything looks good. And I think it's good to review that once a year, regardless of how often we're monitoring. I think we've got maybe 6 or 8 that we test on a regular basis. So he'll be looking at that. We'll take him down, let him look at the new property that we purchased as well. And if there's any other questions that come up from any of the staff or whatever, we'll be answering those. But this is the annual meeting of that committee, and it should be held at least once a year to review those results. The other thing I would like to announce, Chief Holler, congratulations. We have another certificate here. This is from the National Computer Forensics Institute from the United States Secret Service, and it says this certifies that Michael Holler has completed 112 hours in network intrusion response programming, and that was done in Alabama. So congratulations, Mike. Again, welcome back.
Thank you.
There you go. So, not sure what all that is, but it sounds pretty
I
intense.
told the chief he was going to have his PhD here before too long.
So, congratulations. Are there any other items of communication?
Yes.
Mrs. Sweet.
I'm just announcing the Enon Green and Alumni Association banquet will be held Saturday, May 21st at the new Greenon High School. Anyone has any questions about it, they can email us at greenonalumni@gmail.com. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Any other items? All right, we'll go into staff reports. Kevin, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Mayor, Council, residents. The first item on my agenda is the Apple Butter Fest. we had a couple meetings with Ben and Walter of the Ben of Domino's and Walter with the Historical Society, trying to come up with a good, safe plan for the Apple Butter Fest, and actually knowing that Ben has built Domino's downtown here. So these maps in front of you is the plan that came out of the meetings, especially the last meeting. We had 2 meetings. So as you can see, basically we're going to do about the same thing as we've done in the past of blocking the road off, except we are going to, at this main intersection, we're going to leave 2 barricades empty. That way Doug will come out early morning. What, your delivery's on Friday morning? Saturday mornings. So Doug will come out on Saturday mornings, move the 2 barricades, and the truck can back down to Domino's and then pull back out after he empties his load. And then we'll have the fire department, we'll get a hold of the fire department and make sure that they can fill those barricades up. The alley behind Domino's going to be turned into a one-way alley headed north to Main Street. There will be no left turn there. They'll have to, whoever's coming out of that alley will have to turn right. It was discussed with Walter that he would have a person, a body there, kind of directing traffic at that end of the alley, and at the end of the alley, where the school is at, to direct traffic down through there.
You have somebody directing traffic or someone else?
No.
The Historical Society will provide somebody.
Okay.
The Historical Society, Walter mentioned about making signs, whatever signs is going to be needed to help facilitate the traffic flow, things like that. This is a one-way alley here,
Yep.
right traffic, right turn. Mainly, and then also when drivers are coming in the alley to their drivers or public to go pick up their pizza at the drive-through window, they'll pull up the drive-through window. We'll have their like snow fence or barrels or whatever barricaded that off because they're going to be turning right in front of the building. They're on that concrete apron, coming out of the drive-through, going back in and back out to the alley.
Okay, and Kevin, how are we going to end up? Historically, you've had vendors that start putting up in on Friday nights here along the road. Are we just not
Walter
going to be able
said
to
that
do
they're going to keep them back enough where the truck can
Okay.
back down through there.
as long as it works for you?
Yeah.
So let me say a couple things. First of all, I appreciate the cooperation that we've had between the Historical Society and Ben, as you as a new business owner in Enon. We got a lot of time wrapped up in this one. And Mike, Kevin, and our other staff members, we've had actually several meetings to try to get to this point, to this agreement. In my opinion, this is the safest way for the Apple Butter Festival and for the business to operate. However, with that said, it doesn't mean this, we try it this year. If there's something better that comes from it, it doesn't mean that what happens this year would necessarily be set in stone. And we've been pretty clear with that. We're just trying to make sure that we accommodate the business and we do that the safest way that we can. So again, there's been a lot of thought put into it, and I think this is a good plan. And again, Ben, I appreciate your cooperation and also with the Historical Society.
And what's going on Saturday morning that we need to use the main road instead of using the alley like all the other traffic is going to go?
So he's going to get a delivery, and it's a big truck.
Tractor trailer.
It's a big semi.
Got it.
So,
Never
yep.
mind.
And that's how we came, and our staff members came up with that idea in order to accommodate that.
How early is that, sir?
Between 3 and 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, okay.
So from a traffic standpoint, it should, we shouldn't have any issues, but the manpower and the signage is going to be driven by the village, by the police department, by our administrator. So the people that are manned at the different places, those are going to be at the request of the village. And Walter made it very clear. Walter Adkins, who came and represented the Historical Society, said, "You tell us how many people we need." And he was very accommodating from that standpoint. So.
Can I just make one correction on the map? The barricade has nothing to do with the Domino's end. It's the other end of the street on the map. The barricade actually is at Scott Street.
That's right.
Yeah, I just put it in
Okay.
there, so,
Okay. For anybody that's using the map.
yeah.
Any questions from council? Okay, that's going to be our plan. Thanks, Kevin.
Item number 2, the blood drive results. Each year we do this. It's amazes me how many people step up and participate. We had 27 units collected, which was their goal, and come to find out, this will save 81 lives. So it's a good thing for Enon. It's well response, good response from the community, and hopefully it keeps going. So. Citizen of the Year ceremony is Sunday, May 1st at 2 p.m. at Knob Prairie Church. Letters have been sent out, so that is Sunday, May 1st at 2 p.m. And I will be in training along with Jason and Wayne on Thursday.
Does this keep up with Mike or what?
Yeah, let's keep on. He gets all the
Keep up with Mike's
certificates.
training.
But no, this we'll be down in Monroe, Ohio, and for our water license. So that's
Is Wayne going to be there as well?
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so everybody's going to be
Yes.
going. Okay.
So Doug will be here, and I'll tell Doug as well that if there's any emergencies, naturally call us and
Sure.
whatever. So
Okay.
Doug will be in a training training tomorrow. So
Okay.
sending him to that. So. And you mentioned about the drinking water source protection meeting. I think that's all I have for now.
Kevin, a question popped in my mind. Street sweeping. Do we have somebody scheduled to get that done?
We've got, I forget his name now. He's a local guy. We used to have DSS do it, and there was another bid come in, the same, but this guy was local, and I thought he used to work for the village way back when. But I'll have to get it. Yes, we got it.
We have somebody
Yes,
though. Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Yeah.
Questions for our administrator? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Kevin. Chief, welcome back.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and residents. It's good to be back. First item I have is this Saturday, April 30th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We'll have the National Drug Take Back for prescription drugs. Residents can come up to the front government center there, use that front entrance, and drop their prescription medication into the drop box, and we'll have officers stand by to keep it emptied, packed up. That'll actually be me, not officer. That's usually a pretty good turnout. I think last year we took, 60, 70 pounds or something.
Wow.
I cashed in. I can't remember off the top of my head. But the good thing is the DEA does that quarterly now, so that keeps it down. That way we don't have to break our backs annually. We just do it quarterly. Reference to training I did. I attended the network intrusion training to neck that down. That's just going out and responding if somebody had a malware incident or were hacked or some sort of intrusion into their security system. I came back with about $22,000 worth of equipment, Kevin. So if you could beat that Sunday, that does put the PD at roughly around about $125,000 worth of software and equipment compliments of the federal government to do that type of security. We would never be able to do anything like that without that, and that was free training through a federal grant, which comes back up to vote, I believe, in September, October. They do it annually, and that's funded by the federal government to help fund local law enforcement only. The federal government does not receive funds to get that type of equipment. It's for local law enforcement. It's just the federal government puts on the training. So I'm very fortunate to get my name drawn out of that hat as often as I have in the last 2 years, and hopefully they continue to do that. But at any rate, I had a good time, learned a lot, and that's about it. Yeah.
It's always good to come back, isn't it?
Yeah, I gotta meet with the school Thursday. I will let council know that. The Superintendent Kanapke contacted me last week. We spoke. I guess they want a quote on what it would cost for a school resource officer for part-time and full-time. Luckily, I did that back in 2019 as a capstone project for CLE, And I just got to massage the numbers because it's a little outdated, but I'll get that to them Thursday night. I know the Clark County Sheriff's Office will be there as well. I spoke with one of their representatives, Sergeant Lehman, so they'll be there presenting as well. I just hope that we all as a law enforcement community can jointly work with that school and every school actually, just to keep it safe and figure out a way to make it happen, whatever the case may be.
Mike, did the superintendent tell you when they expect to make a decision?
No.
Okay.
No, he hasn't.
Okay.
So it sounds, it was a hurry up. Can you get those numbers
Yeah.
soon? And I said, sure, I can get them whenever. He said, how about next Thursday? Well, that's a little early, but I suppose I can make that happen. So I already, like I said, had most of the legwork done. It's pretty cut and dry in my opinion. The biggest, the issue, the hurdle that the PD is going to face is we do not have any current grant or federal funding for resource officer or anything like that. That is something that I tried to apply for back in 19, but with some just miscommunications, I believe, between the school and the PD, we weren't able to get that grant submitted as it had to be signed off that they were interested. But currently there's no grant open, at least a large grant. There's some small little grants, but that's nothing like we need. We'll take anything we can get, but we'll wait for that JAG grant to open. And I would say even if no matter what happens, if funding, my guess wouldn't even open until 23. I mean, that's just off the top of my head, just from my experience from reading through the grants in the past and stuff. But
like we were talking earlier this week, once we get latched onto something, the renewal of that is...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Once we would get approved for it and figure out what monies we would get, that would definitely, we would be in there. So
Okay.
anyways.
So the school would not be paying for reimbursing the village for the resource officer?
Well, so the grant, they can fund 100%, 50%, 75%. It's kind of all up to the federal government. But I did one at a cost of 50%. Originally, we were 4 or 5 years ago, we were in a position we could potentially afford. The agency could afford a 25, even 50%, possibly out of pocket cost. Now, no, I don't see that feasible. We would need a lot more funding. I think a large amount of the funding would have from the school, from the grant. Right? Or we would have more full-time officers than we currently have. So the funding out of the pocket for the village for an officer to be solely dedicated to that school would have to be minimal, in my opinion, based off budget.
Right, but are they, meaning the school district, going to reimburse us for the resource officer, or are we looking for funding strictly from a grant?
Oh, I'm just telling them what it would cost, and when I mean cost, what it would cost to have an officer in there at their expense.
And Clark County's going to present the same information?
Yeah, Clark County Sheriff's Office is in a little bit different position. They already have, they receive grant monies for school resource officers, to my knowledge, and because of that, they already have active school resource officers that are able to move around, and they could slide somebody right in there, probably at obviously a lower cost out of pocket. But yes, the school would have to reimburse us if we put somebody in there that wasn't funded. We can't afford to do it without some sort of funding from somebody other than us. So I'll give them the numbers and tell them I already know what it will cost. At least the first year, because that was our 5th year 4 years ago. But
And Dave, the school also, when we had our meetings with them, they had concerns on their financial ability to reimburse the village. That's why they asked about making the offer part-time. So what we've got to do is make sure that we can go ahead and fund our 50%, say if they reimburse us for 50%, that we end up having the monies or can figure out some way to staff properly, to have a 100% person there and try to make it work for both parties.
But it sounds like
a juggling act.
yeah, and when we use the word part-time as far as school resource officer, that doesn't mean a part-time police officer filling that position. That would be a full-time police officer working part of their 40-hour work week in that school periodically. We can't put a part-time officer as a school resource officer in a school, because short of them coming from another agency and prior to having that training or signing off by me, that's a lot of investment into someone that may or may not stay here short time. I mean, I obviously have an officer in mind. I am a school resource officer, but clearly I can't do that. But I mean, I'm the only one in the agency that holds that title. But
Sagrina Local School District is going to receive 2 proposals. One from Clark County Sheriff,
correct.
where their costs are fairly minimal because they already have grants.
Well, their costs would be more. They're still going to. I can't imagine an agency not charging what it would cost an officer. Their pay is higher than ours, so their cost, I would think that their cost to provide a school resource officer is going to be more than it would be for the Enon Police Department to provide one, because our hourly rate is a lot lower than theirs. So by default, ours most likely, I don't know how it couldn't come in under, but I don't necessarily think it's about cost. I think it's about getting somebody in there regardless of who supplies it. But in the end, the Enon Police Department needs to have a trained school resource officer in that school, funded from the school or some sort of grant, working with a deputy or by themselves, however it works. But we have to have a place in there because that's our jurisdiction. We're going to get stuck handling the calls regardless.
Right.
Mike, just to clarify, excuse me, real quick, just to clarify, the time spent in the school, the expectation would be for the school to assume the responsibility for the payment of that officer's service, either directly or from grant monies,
Yeah,
correct?
I think what it is we're, from last time I spoke with the Superintendent Kanapke at the board meeting, they wanted a price of what it would cost to have an officer in there at part-time, basically, for a cheap example, $20 an hour, 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, what will that cost? Versus what will it cost 40 hours, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. I think they want that broke down. I mean, I would, and then they'll decide whether or not they want one full-time or part-time.
So
We
is this,
also need to look at tallying, since the school opened up, how many man-hours the best we can to show what services we've already provided them free of charge, basically of our duty officer. I think that would be important to.
Well, yeah, our
we-
call volume obviously has increased. By just the sheer number of population, and that's raised our call volume significantly. It has. To give you a number on that, it'd be nice if we had a better report system. Once we get on the board with the sheriff's office report system, it'd be good. But I can tell you right now, I spent 4 hours today working on an investigation related to the school of aged students that would not be in the village prior to this new school arrival. That helps answer your question. That was
Mrs.
just
Sweet,
me.
you had a question as well?
I do, the school resource officer would be at the school during school hours?
Correct.
How about other events after school hours?
Well, yeah, they would be expected to be at those events. That's correct.
Okay, and then the athletic field is not in our village. Who would be seeing to that?
A school resource officer can go wherever the school goes if they
Okay.
wanted. Currently, right now, we staff the basketball games, which the school pays for out of pocket. They reimburse the village. Actually, they pay the officers direct, I'm sorry, for events at the Green and School, like the basketball games and stuff. But a school resource officer could go outside of the jurisdiction, no boundaries of Enon, and still be okay to go to any school event because it's school-related.
Like
That
the-
happens somewhat often.
The football field at the old site, et cetera?
Yeah, I would hope that they would just contract with the sheriff's office to
For
do
that.
that. It would just
Right.
be the easiest route, but I mean,
Okay.
it's whatever. We'll do whatever we can with the resources that we have, that we always have and we always will.
Thank you.
But the
Thanks,
school
Chief.
district is, well, I was going to say this. Oh, never mind.
Okay.
Sorry.
Any other questions?
But we have presented them to figures to them before, Mike, and they've never really.
Well, I spoke with a previous superintendent about it. I never got to present it to the school board because it just never came to fruition, but
But do you think the school board has an option to not pick Enon School or Enon Police Department?
I think the
even though
school
they
has an
are-
option not
The school
to.
is in our district.
I mean, the school
within
has
our
an option
jurisdiction.
not to put an SRO in. I mean, they could choose not to do that, or they could choose to go with the sheriff's office, of course. The sheriff's office has jurisdiction throughout the county. They
Right.
could. But the one thing the sheriff's office can do that we can't do, well, we could, because the sheriff's office does assist us when we ask. They've never told us no, but the sheriff's office can say that's Enon PD's jurisdiction, kick them the call, and we have to take it. But we do that now. But I mean, they could technically do that. And from a business standpoint, that's the smart thing to do because it saves. manpower and cost. Ultimately, we're going to eat a bill regardless, and I say that because that's just the best way to say it. This was
Go in and do your best Thursday
Yep.
night.
So
So
we'll see.
that's all we can do.
Yeah.
Thank you for your report. Any other questions for our chief?
No, sir.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. All right, we have no old business, no new business.
Can I make a remark on old business just real quick?
Absolutely.
please? I'm sorry, it kind of skipped my mind earlier. I'd just like to
Pull your mic down.
I'd just like to say, I'd just like to say thanks to Kevin, the township, and our clerical staff, as well as council for the cooperation that went into the property purchase. I know it was a large expenditure for both us and the township, but it was made in the best interest of what we feel for our citizens and for the future of green space within the township and within the village. But again, I just want to say thanks to all my co-members and the mayor and the staff itself for the time that's been spent on that and the way that both entities came together to try to achieve a vision for everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Hannah.
Thank you.
Okay, comments from our public. Public, Mr. Wazak. I saw his hand first. Sorry.
Chuck Wazak, Village of Enon resident. With regard to that last, we need to make a distinction here. Now, it's not as if I and we have not previously understood that the joining of the school in the village would represent an additional cost to the Village of Enon. But I think we need to start thinking in terms of village taxpayers and school district taxpayers. You see, in one sense, if we eliminate the grant feature, if we don't watch out how this plays, the Village of Enon taxpayer will get hit twice. In other words, remember when you talk about the school district paying for an officer, it's really the taxpayers of the school district paying for that. But remember, when you say the Village of Enon, now you're talking about solely the taxpayers of the Village of Enon.
That's correct.
So going forward, I would really like to have clarity on that, because I'm not opposed to increased taxes to support safety for our children, but, I don't want us to be hoodwinked into paying more than an equitable share just because the school is now in the school district or in the village confines. So please keep that in mind going forward, that we don't want an inequitable distribution of weight or burden on that. So just keep that in mind. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Wazak.
Actually, if I could respond to that, Mr. Wozniak, I'll go ahead and give you a response to that. I wanted to let you know that I do appreciate you bringing that up, and that is something that I've always been mindful of. My job and the PD's job is to serve all the residents of this village, and not just any one particular set of property. And I've always kept that in mind, and I would not take the resources away to put them in the school, to take them away from the residents. I won't do that, because that's not fair, and I agree with you.
But just a reclama, just from the standpoint of, hey, I've got grandkids in that school.
Yeah, well, we're about safety, but
So from that standpoint, I'm not being miserly. I'm just saying that there needs to be clarity, and we need
A
to
fair
know
share.
what we're biting into.
when I came down here in 2008, and I know today you can still do it a little, we had a lot of residential burglaries, 2008 and 2009, if everybody remembers. It was in the township and in the village. And the times of those burglaries were from the hours of about 8 a.m. to 8:45 a.m. because they knew where the chief that worked the day shift patrol that day would be at. You could set your clock by it. And I try not to run an agency like that. I'm not saying that was bad, but that's what the criminal did. And I try not to do that. So I keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief.
Thanks, Chief. Mr. Kanky.
had a simple question.
And if you would approach the podium, please. Thank you.
It's a good way to keep people from asking questions. Simple question. I was not paying attention closely enough when you talked about returning the drugs.
Yes.
What was the date of that again?
It will be this Saturday, April 30th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And if residents aren't able to make that, that drug drop box sits out front and it's available Monday through Friday during business hours at the government center. Or if they contact the duty officer, they could meet them up there if they wanted to get rid of them outside of those hours. But that box sits up there 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Berry? Good evening and good to see you.
Well, you too, Mayor Howard.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, all of you. My name is Robin Berry, and this evening I am representing the Enon Community Historical Society. I am an officer with that group. And I just wanted to make it quite clear that the people that we are providing to give direction at the alley from Broadway to Main will only be there during festival hours. We pay a group of bikers to park cars, and that's who we will be providing as two of those bikers. So when the festival's over, they're done. So you might want to keep an eye on that.
I wouldn't have to worry about traffic flow after that, but I appreciate that.
Thank you. Any other comments this evening? Okay, seeing none, we need a motion to